This fund invests in global equities from developed markets that are large cap. We define large cap as over 10 billion. I feel my process has 3 steps. The first step is to find companies that can compound value. Frankly, the simple answer is avoid things that go backwards. So I'm looking for well-run companies that are well-managed with room to grow and redeploy capital. The second step of the process is to value the business and understand where I want to own it because the risk return is attractive. There are many examples of great companies that are growing, but they're just so expensive as stocks that you don't get paid for owning it. I try to avoid that by focusing on valuation, and my step of thinking through scenarios is called the return matrix. Step 3 in my process is really how do you fit in the portfolio? I own 35 stocks roughly, and I'm working to create balance between style factors of growth and value as well as cyclical factors of how economically sensitive you are. And if I just blindly put stocks into the portfolio without understanding how they're influenced by interest rates or how cyclical they are, I run the risk of building a portfolio that's heavily skewed. The primary risk in this strategy is my idiosyncratic stock-specific risk. My tracking error is roughly 4%, and 3/4 of that tracking error historically has been explained by stock-specific risk. I work to minimize that risk by owning good companies that are compounding value and not going backwards. I referenced that as step 1 of my process earlier. The second step of risk control is owning those companies at good valuations, because owning bad companies that are expensive is highly risky. And then the third step in the risk control process is really working to build a portfolio that is diversified so that I'm not exposed to factor tilts around inflation, interest rates, or economic sensitivity. I do incorporate ESG into my process. It occurs in step 1 when I'm evaluating companies qualitatively to understand who is capable of compounding value long term. And I think ESG plays a role there, because if companies are really bad ESG actors, maybe they're taking shortcuts with how they treat the environment, their employees, frankly, or their corporate governance, it's only a matter of time before it shows up in the economic of the business through either a lawsuit or, frankly, sometimes it shows up in margins because companies that have been underinvesting in labor have to go and really raise wages, and then you see it happen, hurt their margins and hurt the profits. So to me, it's a qualitative assessment that we do early, and if we see yellow flags that aren't being addressed by management, we eliminate the stock from consideration, because, again, if you're taking ESG shortcuts, it's only a matter of time before it hurts the economics of the business. So I mentioned earlier I'm a global large cap core fund, and I think that can become the anchor of a portfolio. But I think it's important that people appreciate that roughly 2/3 to 3/4 is going to be in the United States, because that's the construction of my benchmark. I consider that a good thing, because I think the U.S. stock market is the best wealth creation vehicle in the world. We have the fastest GDP growth because we have the fastest productivity, and I don't see that changing the next decade. But people need to be aware of that. Outside of that, I think owning this as the anchor, but supplementing with more growth or more value or more specific tech or more specific commodity exposure, depending on the interests or needs of the individual person, is a good strategy.